Hey, how's it going there, folks? Welcome back here to this Thursday night. It is the Earthmaster here on this end. Leap Day, February 29th, 2024, about 11:23 p.m. here, California time. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe. Let's see what we got. Some movement. Looks like a 5.3 moderate-sized earthquake out here around Papua New Guinea. That's in the green flag right there. Some further activity along the Kermadec Trench, it looks like, some deeper movement. So, also got a 4-pointer over here around the South America region. Let's go ahead and start off here along the west coast, off the northern California coastline. Haven't really seen any major uptick following all this activity earlier this morning. Expecting to see some, but surprisingly, we don't have a whole lot of activity out here off the northern California region aside from that movement last night. Did see some further movement here, though, around the Discovery Bay area. A 3-pointer coming in. This is the area that has seen a little bit of earthquake activity here recently, but a little bit more scattered out to the west here. Let's see if these guys have reviewed this or not. It's still underneath automatic status, so this will probably get revised to a different location and probably much closer to these areas that have seen earthquake activity there yesterday within that same region. Southern California, got a little bit of movement along the San Jacinto Fault Zone, and also right smack dab here in this interchange, this intersection of the Garlock Fault, the plate boundary. This is a lot more dangerous than I think people think. Definitely a lot of strain builds up here across this area. It's kind of a shear point, and it would make sense that strain builds up here. Haven't really seen a large earthquake out here in a little while, but got a handful of smaller quakes here this afternoon, 2.5 and a 1.4 in that area. Not a whole lot going on specifically on the San Andreas Fault for now, but we'll continue to watch that as, no doubt, it's definitely primed for the big one. Question is, when is it going to happen? All right, looking out at Yellowstone National Park, not a whole lot going on. We've got some wind events coming in here. That's exactly what this is here. I'll show you guys just real quick on the wind map, the windy map. Probably be able to see the winds up here gusting across the area. Some of those peaks may be seeing higher gusts than what is shown here, 35 miles an hour, and I'm sure a little bit higher as you head over towards the eastern areas of the park. But that's exactly what we're seeing there. Environmental noise, nature, nature does show up here on these seismograph stations. So wind events out there. Not a whole lot of earthquake activity, though, for now. Further out and about here across the rest of the states here, looks a little bit more active out here across the area of Illinois, and a couple other smaller quakes out here in the Tennessee area. Although most of this here was earlier this morning, so not a whole lot of newer activity to report back on for now in that area. Puerto Rico area had a 4-pointer down here around the Dominican Republic. Aside from that, very quiet out here. Normally, we'll see at least a decent amount of earthquake activity, or at least a handful, and really there's only a small amount here earlier this afternoon. So aside from that 4-pointer, it looks awfully quiet there across the Caribbean plate, at least according to the USGS map. Look at the EMSC model here. Shows about the same over here around Puerto Rico, but the Middle America Trench here showing some older earthquake activity. The South America region, there's that 4-pointer coming in fairly deep into the area. Looks like 119 kilometers deep for that 4-pointer into the Peru-Chile Trench. The USGS not picking up on that earthquake yet, but I'm sure they will. Up along the Gulf of California, looks like they're having a little bit of activity up there as well. Some 3s and 4s stirring up out there. Not really showing up here on the USGS map, but it is on the EMSC model. So kind of important to pay attention to these other agencies' quakes, because we could be missing out on that if we don't have, other earthquake activity showing up out on the globe here. Obviously, it's a pretty decent amount up here across the plate boundary, divergent zones, and that can have an effect up here across the Southern California area. So we'll continue to watch that. Again, it looks like there's a couple 3s and 4s out here, fairly recent. All right, man, look over here, lighting up like crazy. There's that 5-pointer there in the New Guinea area. Also, little bit of deeper movement here, 4.8, 472 kilometers deep. So getting a little adjustment going on here, well underneath this area. Looks like the strain is really building out here across this region. So keep an eye here across this area. The last 30 days of earthquake activity out here, as far as quiet zones go. Well, the Kurokama for one, not a whole lot going on up there. New Zealand area, all the deeper activity here recently. Got to keep an eye on some larger scale movement here potentially across New Zealand. And let's see here. There's a lot of older activity up here across the Mariana Trench from earlier in the month. It's been actually been a couple weeks here since we've seen any activity, so this could be a prime area to watch for some further movement. Over here across the Tokyo area, a couple earthquakes this morning and one this afternoon, 5.2. They've been having a swarm of activity here recently, just off the coast there of Tokyo, Japan. Continue to watch that because this is a major area that can see some large damaging earthquakes. Of course, the most recent one there back in 2011, that 9-pointer. Super deep earthquake up here around the Sea of Osk area, 4.1. Almost 500 kilometers deep here. Nothing to show for it, though, upstream. Normally we'll see deeper movement quakes here and ultimately some surface adjustment, or at least some upstream adjustment, and nothing's happening. I tell you, this place, this fault system right here, this plate boundary, definitely primed, I feel, for some larger scale movement. It's a major subduction zone out there. Huge subduction zone, and it's reinforced out here by the North American plate and other plates around the area that are kind of pushing on this region here. So keep an eye here on the Kurokama. Up here across the Aleutian Trench here, one earthquake earlier this morning, a 5-pointer. Looks like we're seeing a handful of smaller earthquakes here across the general area, maybe around some of these volcanoes, showing a little bit of microquake activity, but aside from that, nothing major going on. Hawaii, lighting up out here slightly, at least one in the last hour, 2.1. Really not a whole lot there to report around the Kilauea volcano, but let's just go double check that and see how it's going out there. On the beautiful island of Hawaii, the Big Island. Most of the volcanoes out here, obviously across the Cascades, Sierra Nevada, Southern California, all in the green. Typical activity across some of those volcanoes there in the Aleutian Trench. Kilauea volcano still currently sitting at a yellow state, just due to some earthquake activity and that large displacement of magma here recently. Is this UWE station going to work? I mean, it's either going to or it's not. It's working. All right, so a little bit of an uptick here in the last 12 hours or so. That's not a huge uptick. It might look so. It might look like it on the chart, but these are very minimal adjustments compared to, the last 30 days of activity out here where we've seen that huge displacement of magma from the summit. It dropped like a rock here, went off to the Southwest Rift Zone, and it's just kind of sitting out here, I believe, off in this region. We had been watching a pretty decent amount of earthquake activity stretching out here towards the Loihi Seamount, but really haven't seen any major changes out here. As far as earthquake activity goes, you can see it there, at least when it wants to work. Past 12 hours, small amount of earthquake activity, really not a whole lot to report there across the Hawaii area for now. Look at the Atlantic out here. Let's see, looking over here, I know this ain't the Atlantic, but I'm looking at some further earthquake activity here across the Java Trench area. Definitely a lot of newer quakes here built up. All these white rings here indicating new movement. Of course, the deeper quake just recently here in this area. That's going to be this one raised off the globe. Something brewing out there for sure. Far as the Mediterranean areas, it looks quite active over here. Goodness. A little bit of activity, deeper regions there off the coast of Italy, it looks like, and some movement there across the Mediterranean Sea. A couple fours out there, kind of stretching out here towards the divergent zones. Here's a 4.3. Let's see where this is at. Looks like they may have removed that 4-pointer, 4.3. It's been a little while, but occasionally we'll see these false quakes pop up here. I'm really not. Well, there it is, 4.3. The just offshore here. Sometimes, like I was mentioning, there's fault false earthquake showing up here on the map, but this doesn't look to be a false earthquake as the EMSC is reporting it, but it looks quite active out here. Goodness. 3.5 in the Cypress area. So we'll continue to watch that. Looks like it is leading up out here across the divergent zones. So keep a closer eye on that region here. The Iceland area, of course, what goes on across the Atlantic there in the divergent zones has a major effect across Iceland. And for now, well, only about 26 earthquakes here in the area. Not a whole lot happening here across the Grindavik region, where we're expecting another eruptive event to take place here soon. They're comparing the current volume of magma to that of the previous eruptions. This was put out here today, at least in my today, the 29th. Activity there underneath the Sefart-Singh region has continued at a constant rate, and their statement says that an increased likelihood of a volcanic eruption in the coming days. But they said this about a week ago or so as well. But you know, the main thing to look for, as I've said in the past here, is elevated earthquake activity. And I'm talking a lot more than just 50 earthquakes there. I'm talking about probably 100 or more in a very short amount of time span. And we're just not seeing that yet. But normally we'll have about half an hour or an hour before eruptive activity takes place. But it could be less here, as mentioned. So yeah, I mean, obviously we're building up here. This is a current magma volume level. Days since the beginning of inflation. Most of them have been about 25 to 30 days or so. I know we haven't quite hit that mark. We're getting close though. So we'll continue to watch that and report back on anything that changes out there in the Iceland region. As far as data goes across the space weather department here, looks like 3590 still continuing to have a little bit of party out here across the northwestern limb. Unfortunately, this sunspot region is just about out of sight, out of mind. Maybe not out of mind. You know, this is one of the more stronger sunspots we've seen in a long time. And, of course, it produced that 6.3, X6.3 flare. So far, the largest solar flare of this cycle. And we'll see you later there, 3590. Not a whole lot of expected solar flaring from the sunspots, although it looks like this area down here is showing a little bit of complexity. Quite a few little popcorn of different color there in that center core. That's a sign of potentially getting unstable and complexity showing there in that sunspot region. So we'll continue to watch that. That looks like it's going to be 3598 here. So we'll continue to watch that. A couple newer regions around the eastern limb. Getting a little view of it. Guess we'll get a little bit better view here in the coming days. That is the former sunspot 3576. Looks like that's coming back around the bend. This is the far side, of course, off here on the eastern limb. 3576 is that one that's just starting to come around here on the eastern limb. Not a whole lot in terms of auroras, at least in the forecast. Seeing a little bit of enhancement right now up to around the 3 kp index here. So potential, just a slight chance of auroras up there across these latitudes, much higher latitudes. Aside from that, not a whole lot there in the forecast for now. Storm Prediction Center tells us that there's not a lot of severe weather, at least in terms of tornadoes and hail and damaging wind gusts. We do have some thunderstorm activity that we may see tomorrow on Friday here in California. And that's due to I'm going to refresh this. This is a little bit older image. But that's due to this massive low pressure system out here. Look at this. A lot of cold, unstable air dipping down into the Pacific Northwest. And that is a dandy of a winter storm. I believe one of our strongest storms so far this winter. Not in terms of precipitation here in the Sacramento Valley, but in terms of blizzard conditions up there into the Sierra Nevada. And also massive amounts of snow. Make sure I got the most recent info here from the National Weather Service out of Sacramento. Don't want to be traveling, folks, tomorrow or Saturday. We're talking about blizzard conditions. There is a blizzard warning up here in the red. That includes areas down into maybe around the 3,000 feet level or so as well. They do have Looks like some of these foothill locations in that blizzard warning. So expecting 5 to 10 feet above 5,000 feet. So you got all that snow coming down very heavy, along with 65 mile per hour wind gusts or higher. Yeah, I would say that's a blizzard. Winter storm warning up north, north of Redding, and maybe some snow out here across the coastal range as well. But yeah, definitely don't want to be traveling, right? There's going to be zero visibility. Definitely don't want to be out there. Yeah, so that's all coming in tomorrow. And again, we're not really expecting too much rainfall here in the Sacramento Valley, but the snow, look at these deep blue levels out here. That's a lot of snow accumulation building up in a short amount of time. And all that cold air could bring some instability to the region, and that could produce some thunderstorms. So more rain for the southeast here, it looks like. They're picking up on that subtropical jet there. Another storm coming in as we head midweek to California, not quite as strong. And, well, it looks like maybe this storm enhanced a little bit as we head into next week on the 11th. Not this week that's coming up here, but the next week. And we'll just have to watch this and see how it plays out. All right, we're getting into that time of year, springtime, where things get a little on the crazy side in terms of severe weather. All right, folks. I'm trying to think if there's anything else here. The live stream's up. I think it's up. It stayed pretty steady here for a little bit. We did have some wind earlier. It's still kind of windy outside, but I don't think we're expecting any major wind gusts out here tonight like we've seen this morning. So hopefully the stream will stay up. If not, I'll get it as soon as I can. In the meantime, stay safe out there, and quiet is the key word out here for now, at least according to the seismograph stations. But watch a couple of these areas. Yeah, that 4-pointer looks like it's fairly deep here in the southern end of the Kermadec Trench. Been getting lots and lots of deep earthquake activity out here across North Island recently. Definitely think something's brewing out there in the region. All right, folks, you stay safe. We'll catch you guys back here in the morning. Friday is upon us. Take care, folks.